Well, good morning. This is coming from the kitchen of the Vaughns, and I'm going to be talking today about sacred space. And I thought there's no more sacred space than a kitchen table, because that's where life happens. It's been a good 3 or 4 days just thinking about this whole issue of sacred space that Rob Bell raises, and I realized that what he's raising is, again, one of those paradoxes that we bump into in the scripture, and that is, you'll get these admonitions like with Joshua before he went into the promised land, that God would say to Joshua, you know, I'm going to be with you as you go in and into the land. And so there's that sense in which God is with us and going with us. But then there's also the paradox that when we get there, God is already there, because really the whole thing is God is everywhere. So God is with us and God is there. So the story that I've been thinking a lot about is the story of Jacob. And so just let me just read it here. Jacob left Beersheba, and the reason he was going, he needed to go get a wife other than a Canaanite. So he was going back to his mom's family to see if he could find himself a bride. So Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. He came to a certain place and camped for the night, since the sun had set. He took one of the stones there and set it under his head and lay down to sleep. Doesn't sound very comfortable to me. And he dreamed. A stairway was set on the ground, and it reached all the way to the sky. Angels of God were going up and going down on it. Then God was right before him, saying, I am God, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac, and I'm giving the ground in which you are sleeping to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. They'll stretch from west to east, from north to south. All the families of the earth will bless themselves in you and your descendants. Yes, I'll stay with you. I'll protect you wherever you go. I'll bring you back to this very ground. I'll stick with you until I've done everything I promised you. Jacob woke up from his sleep. He said, God is in this place, truly, and I didn't even know it. And he was terrified. He whispered in awe, incredible, wonderful, holy. This is God's house. This is the gate of heaven. Jacob was up first thing in the morning. He took another stone, the stone that he used for his pillow, and he stood it up as a memorial pillar, and he poured oil over it. I just love that phrase. God is in this place, and I didn't know it. I don't know if you know anything about Jacob. One of the remarkable things about the Bible is it doesn't dress up the characters of the Bible and make them anything other than what they were. And in Jacob's case, he was pretty much a scoundrel. He was the youngest of two twins. Esau was his older brother, and right from the get-go, it was the whole sibling rivalry thing. And Esau was dad's favorite, Jacob was mom's favorite, and Jacob was kind of the homeboy that hung out around the house and learned to cook, and Esau was the guy that went out and hunted. And Jacob managed to trick Esau into giving him his birthright for a bowl of hot soup, basically. And then later on, Jacob stole Esau's blessing by dressing up with a skin, so that when his dad was blind and couldn't tell who he was, he put an animal skin on and snuck in and just ahead of Esau, and he got the family blessing. So now he's on this journey. He's going to see his in-law, his mother's kin, and find himself a wife, and he lays down, and then God shows up and with this tremendous promise, which is really a reiteration of the same promise God had made to Abraham and to his father Isaac. And you know, God's there, and he's amazed. And I think the thing that really is telling is that every time God shows up and there's an encounter with God, that whoever has the encounter is frightened. I mean, when we're in the presence of Almighty God, whoa, it is really a moment. So I was thinking about this whole business of God is here and I didn't know it, this whole issue of sacred space. And sacred space is wherever God is. And I know I've had the opportunity, I've been blessed to be able to travel. The church blessed me with a trip to Europe a few years ago, and Lauren and I got to go, to Paris and see Notre Dame. We got to go to Rome and see St. Peter's Basilica. I mean, it was amazing. Some of the churches that we saw were just amazing spaces. I've also been to the Holy Land. I had a friend who invited me to come along when his wife wasn't able to make the trip because of a pregnancy, and so I have been in Bethlehem. I have been to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I have been out to the Sea of Galilee. I've been to the River Jordan. And these are all considered, some of the most preeminent sacred spaces in the world. Now, I will say in the Holy Land, the one that really did touch me, because none of the shrines really did, was being at the Western Wall. And that's the part of Solomon's temple that's been excavated. And it's one of those amazing places where you have this wall with these big stones that were hewed out, 3,000 years ago. And the Jewish people are worshiping at the side of the Western Wall. They're one of the holiest places. And then right up on top of the Temple Mount is the Mosque of the Golden Dome, and that's a sacred spot for Muslims. So you have this amazing juxtaposition of holy sites. But what made the Western Wall holy for me, sacred space, was not that the stones had been put there by Solomon. I mean, that's interesting to me. What made it sacred space to me is that while I sat there, and I sat there for hours, several days, with a sense of God is in this place, was people were putting prayers on little pieces of paper, and they were sticking them in the cracks in the rock. That there was an active spiritual connection with God taking place. This wasn't some dead space that we call sacred. That somehow there was a connection taking place with God. So the sacred space is wherever God is. So I think of my own life. Since I've been here in Sonoma, two very special sacred spaces is on Spain Street, right by the Mission. Right there in the Mission, where the Blue Inn is right there, La Casa, right there at La Casa. On that Saturday morning in March when I was riding my bike back from Lobo Valley, and I had this sense God spoke to me about my alcohol abuse and said, go to AA and it's going to be okay. I mean, I had one of those moments where, like Jacob, whoa, God is in this place and I did not know it. And I was terrified, and that was a defining moment in my life. And then most recently, I've talked about being in room 200 at Sonoma Valley Hospital and having that sense on that Tuesday night that God was somehow there and I was going to be okay. I have this deep sense of peace that came over me that I was going to be okay. But that's what sacred space is about. It's those places where the encounter with God takes place. So that's why I think it's fun to be at a kitchen table. You think of the conversations that take place, the encounters that take place in real life. And there's just nothing that rivals that. We think of going to visit God at church, but Paul echoes this whole sense in Acts 17. He says, God, who made the world and everything in it, is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples made by human hands. Nor does he need anything we can supply by working for him, since it is he himself who gives us life and breath and everything else to everyone. So it's not, what makes places sacred is that collision with God in these places in our lives. And so I'm changing my prayer a little bit. I would say, like when I was going into a conversation with somebody that I thought might be a challenge, to say, God be with me, to a prayer that is more along the lines of, God, make me aware of your presence. You are not only with me, but you're already going ahead of me. You're already where I'm going. So make me aware of your presence when I get there. So, like this conversation I had on Tuesday, it was a spirited conversation. I mean, folks are reading Rob Bell, which I suppose you guys are too down at Picazo, and it's eliciting some pretty spirited conversations. But as we left, we both looked at each other and said, this was really good. We're two friends who could disagree and yet still be connected in that sense that God was in that booth at Hacienda Taqueria with us. And then I also had an encounter down at Picazo where you guys are, and that table that's in the middle, at the north table in the middle there. I had a guy, older guy in our family, in our congregation, that was needing to go see his son, who was having some real difficulty. And so he called me and asked if we could meet. And I was coming back from downtown, and he lives up on the hill. So I said, let's just meet at Picazo. And he came, and his wife came. And we walked into Picazo, and we were greeted by Salvador and Chris. And we went to that table, because that was the one vacant table, and we didn't order anything. And this gentleman, who is not real demonstrative, reached out for my hand, reached out for his wife's hands. We all held hands there at Picazo, and we prayed for his trip. And it was like, God is in this place, in this moment. And I think there's something really powerful there that changes my whole perspective, so that, like, I think of going to El Salvador, and I'm taking, the good news of the gospel. The good news of the gospel is already there. I'm going to find out what God's up to there and become a part of that. So I just cherish the connection I've gotten with a couple of the pastors there in our village of Buenos Aires. Warren Jaycox has been in Romania, meeting with Romanian pastors and seminary professors around this project, around the Vacation Bible School. It's not like we're taking God to them. God's already there. We're coming alongside and being a part of what is happening there. So that there's sacred space all around us. And maybe our prayer needs to be not God be with me, but God make me aware of your presence all around me. And that what it's done for me in the last few days is change my perspective, that every door I walk through has the possibility of that experience, that God is in this place, and I did not know it, because God is in that place. And that just changes. It changes something for me. So have a good time talking that over, and we'll be back to you next week.